Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Collective Intelligence Block Party number 23, our 23rd consecutive weekly 24-hour block party. And we are now kicking off, with much joy and excitement, the 2-hour Divine Feminine segment, led by my queen, Melissa, and my sister, Jackie. Take it away, ladies.
Welcome, everyone. We're so excited to have Judy with us today. And I just wanted to start off by talking about change. So I read the New York Times today. I've not been reading the news very much recently because of, it's not very positive and it generally tends to pull you down. But I did read it this morning, and of course we know what's going on, and it's not getting better. But I didn't want to focus on that. What I wanted to focus on is change and how we can affect change. And so I just wanted to share a quick little story about birds and raccoons and change. And my story about the raccoons is that Jamin and I have a young raccoon that wanders up onto our deck that we feed every day. And actually she comes by 3 times a day now. And we've been really watching her. Usually they travel in family groups, but this one for some reason is on her own. And she's been really teaching us how to be tactile, because raccoons feel everything through their feet, which I didn't realize. And they wet their feet in order to get greater sensitivity. And so she'll dip her feet in the water that we put out for her, and then she'll start feeling everything. So I post these stories, things that I'm learning from nature. I post them on my Instagram. And I saw this morning a friend of mine has rescued a baby raccoon. And so I'm seeing that through our own actions and sensitivities that we can influence the people around us to have this other approach and this other attitude towards nature. And the story around the birds is very similar. So at my studio, I feed all the birds, and there's a great collection of birds that turn up. They're doves, woodpeckers, crows, all sorts of songbirds. And the person I share my studio with just ignored them for a long time. And because of the virus, my friend and I have to share the studio, and we have alternating days. So I'm there like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and she takes the other days. And of course, when the food doesn't turn up on my off days, the birds come knocking on the studio door. Literally makes such a racket that my studio mate just doesn't get away with that. And so the other day she said to me, "Hey, Mel, we're out of birdseed. Could you go get some more?" So she has been turned into a compassionate caregiver to the bird sanctuary at our studio. So I just wanted to mention those 2 little snippets of story, just to say, yes, we can affect change, even though it may seem very small, within our own neighborhoods and areas around us. They're actually big actions, because those will, of course, ripple out and affect many more people. So with that, I pass it over to Jackie, and welcome everyone, and welcome to Judy. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. I always love your contributions, how it just starts and it sets the mood and just sets the theme for our segment of Divine Feminine. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here, for joining us on our block party, 23rd. Woo, that's amazing. I love you all. I'm so grateful that you're here with us. I'm so honored, really, really honored to introduce my friend, colleague, the amazing and humble powerhouse that is Judy Carman. She is been vegan since the 70s. She is a peace, environmental, animal liberation activist. She's the author of several books. Peace to All Beings, Veggie Soup for the Chicken Soul, which love that title. She's co-author of The Missing Piece, The Hidden Power of our Kinship with Animals, Born to be Blessed, 7 Keys to Joyful Living, and her most recent book is called Homo Ahimsa, who we really are and how we're going to save the world. She's co-founder of the Worldwide Prayer Circle for Animals. She works with Lisa Levinson on vegan spirituality and is co-founder of the Interfaith Vegan Coalition, which I am a proud member of. I just really am honored again and so pleased that she joined us. Welcome, Judy Carman. Thank you, Judy, for being with us.
Well, thank you, Jackie and Melissa and everybody. I'm extremely honored to be part of this and to be invited to talk. So, I mean, this is just an amazing group. I can't quite get over how important Vegan World 2026 is and what everybody's doing there, and that we're saying we can do this. It's just, I mean, there's so much fear and sadness and depression in the world right now, and so much bad news. But here we are, we're not giving up. And I just think that's so awesome. And you guys, this 24-hour block party is incredible. So, because, I mean, we really don't have a lot of time. So you guys are on it. So I love that. And I'm trying to participate as much as I can. But yeah, my new book, Homo Ahimsa, just came out. It is now available. I apologize, it's only on Amazon right now, but that was the cheapest way and fastest way to get it out. And I felt like a real urgency about getting that book out. So I'm going to try to find other ways, other venues, because I know Amazon does a lot of bad things. And what I think ultimately our goal is to create an entirely new culture where we won't need Amazon and all of these giant corporations and big pharma and big ag and all these things. We are creating, rather than destroying them, we are creating something new so we won't need them. And then they will just kind of disintegrate, basically. Just like Silas talks about with the chrysalis and the all the chaos that we're seeing right now is what happens to a caterpillar, basically, on a very tiny scale. And so we're living in the imaginal cells, the goo, right now. And we're going to come out as these beautiful butterflies. So it's a very exciting time to be alive, but we need to be spreading hope for people. And so I just feel like you guys are doing that, and I really appreciate it. And so I'm just extremely honored to be included in this. So, so we're talking about the divine feminine. I actually have a chapter on that, the divine feminine rising from the ashes. It's chapter 4, I think. And basically the idea is what you all have been talking about and what we all know, that because of the paradigm of domination that has been going on for the last at least 10,000 years since animal agriculture was invented, women have been dominated, people have been dominated if they're not in the elite set, and animals and the earth, everything basically, except for those who have risen to the top. And so what we need to do is change that paradigm. And of course, that's what you all are working on, to a partnership paradigm wherein we live as equals. Everyone is equal, all people, all nature, and all animals. And we can't do that, though, without incorporating the divine feminine and the divine masculine together. And it's a whole new way of looking at life for many people who have been living in the domination paradigm and have not questioned it. But as we know, there's all kinds of things popping up, the Me Too movement and one thing that I love, Amma, the hugging saint. I don't know if y'all have heard of her. She hugs like thousands of people in one day when she goes to speak. But she gave a speech called The Awakening of Universal Motherhood. And I love that. And she says it's not that everybody needs to be a mother. She has not had children herself. What she's saying is that there is a mother in all of us, in men and women. And we need to release that natural divine motherhood that has always been within us. So I guess I should backtrack a little bit and talk about why I called the book Homo Ahimsa, although you guys are very familiar with that term. But if anyone's listening in that isn't, Silas talks about it too. I kind of introduced the idea in my Peace to All Beings book. The idea being that Homo sapiens has made a complete mess of things because it got this idea that it was Homo sapiens sapiens, intelligent, top of the food chain, with the ability to dominate everything. And so it named itself Homo sapiens sapiens. We need to move away from that because that's all about head. We need to move toward the heart. And Homo Ahimsa, as you all know, Ahimsa is the Sanskrit word for non-harm. That's the literal translation. It's the vow that Gandhi took, the Jain vow, the Jain religion vow, that is about non-harming, non-violence, loving kindness for all creatures. And so if we can transform, and really I kind of make the point in my book, it's not so much a transformation as it is an unveiling. That's who we've always been. But it's been suppressed. That the ahimsa nature, the loving nature that we are and that lives in us all the time has been so suppressed that many people are not even aware of it. But there are many, many Homo Ahimsas alive now who have revealed themselves as Homo Ahimsa. And a lot of that is coming, I think, from women who have realized, okay, no more. We're not sitting down and being quiet anymore. We have something to offer. And I mention in my book about a song that was popular back in the 60s, which may not seem recent to you guys, but I was a young adult at that time, and it was basically saying, Jack somebody sang the song, and it was basically saying that you better not wear your hair in curlers because there are girls at the office who will take your husband away. And so don't wear your hair in curlers or you may not see him again. This was a song, a popular song in the 60s. And there actually were many, many men who did leave their wives for women at the office. So it was like, that's just the way men are, right? We have to accept that. This was not that long ago. So we've come a long way. Women have come a tremendously long way. And because I have been around since I was born in 44, which is when the word vegan was coined. So I'm very proud of that. But I didn't hear the word for years. And I did want to mention, Jackie, I was vegetarian in the 70s. I did not know about veganism. So I took a long time to understand what was going on with cows and chickens, and before I went vegan. So, so I've been vegan about 25 years and vegetarian for, I guess, 50 or something like that. So, and vegetarian is not so great for your health, then especially for the cows and chickens. But it's, looking back, it's helped me a lot to have compassion for people that are having trouble going vegan, because I know that I put blinders on about the cows and the chickens. I know I did. As I look back, I didn't think I was, but I was. So, and of course, a lot of information had not come out yet. We didn't have all the videos and undercover coverage and that sort of thing. But moving back to the divine feminine, there's a lot of prophecies that have been saying for a long time, that the divine feminine will rise at this time in our history, human history, and that is a signal for the earth to be renewed, rejuvenated, saved from Homo sapiens, because the feminine energy is all about nurturing, caring for. Not that all women are, perfect at that, but and many, many men are very good at those things. Intuition, love, unconditional love, all those things that women are really good at. And I think I love the divine motherhood concept, because you can mother, like Melissa was talking about, the birds and the raccoons, and we can mother the earth as the earth mothers us. That is all about caring for and healing and having compassion. And so that's what needs to rise up out of the ashes, that all the witches that were burned, all of the people who were burned because they were trying to suppress that feminine energy of love. Here we are 10,000 years later, and we're going to do that. And it looks daunting, but I love the song, The Impossible Dream. We are doing what appears to be impossible, but it's going to happen. We're going to do this. And my major point in Homo Ahimsa, the book that I just wrote, is that we can do this. There is hope. I go through a lot of the awful things that are happening right now that are scaring people to death, and say, all the things that we know about the deserts forming, the trees being cut down, the indigenous people losing their homes, oceans, all these things that we've all talked about 1,000 times. So I don't need to list them here. But those are very scary to people who are not activists and who don't know what to do about it and don't think they can do anything about it. And so, of course, the great, amazing news is, by going vegan, we can stop animal agriculture. And I think you guys were talking about it when I just got on, is we can't depend on the government to do that. We can't wait for Big Ag to go, what, we should really be nicer to animals. We really can't wait for that. But what's incredible is that all we have to do is not buy their products, and they're over. That's it for them. So we we have to help people see how much power they have. And that is the divine feminine right there. Going to a store to get food for her family and saying, I'm not buying anything that involved cruelty. I'm going to stop Big Ag from existence, not by, blowing it up or anything or with violence, but by simply choosing to live as divine mothers, divine feminine people, and I must say divine masculine, because the divine masculine has also been suppressed tremendously in these last 10,000 years. Another, I think, interesting point is that a lot of anthropologists now with recent research have come to the conclusion that no wars and no pandemics took place before animal agriculture started. And I don't know that we could ever prove that exactly, but by looking at artifacts and also looking at indigenous cultures that are living in small tribes today, there seems to be no evidence of war and or animal agriculture, because they are, and no hierarchy also. So that is, I think, further evidence that our true nature, our inner heart, is all about cooperation. And I just noticed somebody sent me that there's a new book out called something about friendliness or something like that, that they are saying that that's how we're wired, is to be friendly, and that's how we have survived, that it isn't about competition and war, but rather the ones who survive are the friendliest ones, the ones who know how to cooperate. So, but I've been talking on and on. Any questions? I know this is more of a discussion, really, right?
Yes. And I have lots of questions, Judy.
Okay.
How, as such a young woman in the era, how did vegetarianism, where did your awareness, where did that remembering, where was your start? Because I think it's so important for the divine feminine to reflect back to communities how ordinary people find that awareness and how we courageously embrace those changes despite what's going on around us. So if you could share your story of when you remembered who you truly were in that journey.
Well, thanks, Jackie. I love your term remembered, because that's exactly what I'm thinking too, that we're remembering these things. We're remembering how much we loved animals when we were children, and that we didn't know we were eating them. It took a while. My family, my uncles worked in the Kansas City stockyards. We lived in Kansas City, and they worked in the stockyards, which was right in the city at that time in the 50s. And people were proud of that. They were proud that our family was proud of our uncles. They rode around on horses, and we would go down to the Golden Ox restaurant, which was right there. All the cows were around it. The smell, you can imagine, because it was a feedlot, and they were being slaughtered there. And we'd go into the Golden Ox, and people would eat these Kansas City steaks, right? It was like this great celebration. And we were really lucky to be able to go there. And I did not connect those two things. I just thought it was weird that we were eating in a restaurant where it smelled so bad. But I didn't make that connection until I was about 10, and my parents got some lambs. And I thought they got them for me and my brothers and sisters for pets, like our dogs. Well, that wasn't the case, but I fell in love with them thinking that. And about, I don't know, we had them, I'd probably say for maybe a year or so, and they had babies, and it was wonderful. It was heavenly. And I, of course, learned that lambs are people too. So one day I came home from school and they were all gone. And everybody knows what happened to them. I didn't. They said, well, it was just time for them to go away. And then in a few days, we had a meal and my mother called it leg of lamb. And of course, she was very proud of that. She had been raised that way. And that's when the connection was made. But I still didn't, it took me a long time, until I was an adult really, to find out that there was such a thing as a vegetarian, somebody who didn't eat animals. And I learned that from the Indian restaurant that was in Kansas City called the Golden Temple. And I went, oh, so there are people who don't eat meat. And so I started learning recipes and stuff. But yes, it was, my dad was a big game hunter. And so he was a really good man, but it was part of that, to me, the suppression of the divine feminine in men, to think that they have to hunt, that they have to do violent, horrible things to be a man. And he just kept going up the ladder to elephants and giraffes and wolves from plains, and so and polar bear. So it was one of those things that, especially back then, that the Explorers Club and the big game hunter people, they would get awards, and of course they still do, I'm quite sure. But at least we have a rising awareness now among people who hate that dentist that killed Cecil, I mean, that's, come to think of it, that's a really good sign, isn't it, that the divine feminine is rising out of the ashes, that people came out who aren't even vegan and were horrified that that dentist killed Cecil, and I think he lost his business. I heard that he is still killing animals, but anyway, I'm getting off the topic. So that's basically that journey. And then my spiritual journey coincided with it as I began to realize it took a while, and I think a lot of older vegans like me had the same experience of learning gradually, okay, we don't eat animals because it's cruel. Oh, we don't eat animals because they are sentient beings. And because, we grew up being told animals are here for us to use. And I always felt uncomfortable going to the zoo, but I didn't know why I felt uncomfortable, because everybody else was acting like they loved it. I think now that children all probably feel that discomfort, but because I go to the zoo to check on the elephants in Topeka occasionally, and because we've been trying to get them out of the zoo. But anyway, I'll hear parents say, the kids will say something like, why are they swaying back and forth? And the parents will say, oh, they're dancing, and justify that it's fine, animals are fine in the zoo. And so I think the kids all sense it, but the parents have suppressed their own compassion for the animals, and they want their kids to have something fun to do on the weekend. So let's go to the zoo. And so they have to suppress their own innate compassion in order to justify taking their kids to the zoo. So, but anyway, so my spiritual journey began to come together with the animal rights, veganism, vegetarianism first, because I started recognizing who they were. They weren't just my pet lambs or my pet dogs. They were my brothers and sisters, and they were not here for us to use. And I think PETA did a wonderful thing by creating that mantra. Animals are not here for us to use, wear, eat, etc. I mean, that says it really clearly. And then the other side of that coin is they're here for their own reasons. They are our brothers and sisters. We're to take care of each other. We're to be partners here. So then it becomes a spiritual journey. So yeah, thanks for asking that.
Absolutely. Melissa has a question.
Yes, Melissa.
Yeah, thank you, Judy. Beautiful. And I just wanted to explore something off of what you were talking about. And originally, if you take the Inuit people or you know, people who've lived in extreme environments, who live very close to the land and who use ritual and prayer before they hunt, for example. I'm just thinking about clothing because we are naked. We don't have fur to protect us. How do you dress yourself when we're vegan? Because, for example, polyester and things didn't used to exist, of course. Cotton came with agriculture. And so people wore furs, say in Siberia or in Alaska, to protect themselves and to create shelter. So, and I know we don't have to live that way anymore, fortunately. We don't have to wear bear fur and et cetera. That's more vain than anything. But a lot of the microfibers are actually really harming the environment. And wool is a really good material to keep people warm in the winter. So I'm just wondering, from a vegan standpoint, how do you dress oneself? You know, how do you dress society and still be environmentally friendly? Thanks.
It's Melissa, that's a really good question. And yes, I'm learning about the microfibers. I was reading that millions of the fibers leave the clothes every time you wash them. And I think in California, they're talking about doing some sort of legislation to try to cut down on that. And as I'm learning that, I'm looking at labels on my clothes and going, oh, no. And I have some clothes that are made of hemp and cotton. I have some made of organic cotton. Mainly, I shop at secondhand clothing stores. But then, now that I'm learning about the microfibers, I'm going, okay, I have to just find the hemp clothes and the cotton clothes, but at least that way I'm not supporting the sweatshops where they were made. I mean, there's so many issues that it can kind of overwhelm you. And I think we need to be really kind and patient with ourselves when we think about all these things and what is the best thing to do. I think secondhand stores is probably the best way to avoid supporting sweatshops and slave labor. I mean, we're buying the product, but we didn't support the store that sold it. And we didn't support the original store that sold it. And we didn't support the manufacturer. They didn't get our money. So, and that's a way of creating a vegan world, I think. Don't give your money to companies that are destroying the earth and people and animals. But it's hard. I mean, but as far as wool, I think there's quite a debate going on about that. Obviously, we don't want to use wool that's been sheared off of factory farmed sheep, or, well, I shouldn't say factory farm, any farm. Humane farms, there's no such thing. So any kind of shearing that's going on in those places is going to be very cruel to the animals. And the people who are doing the shearing, they have to do very cruel things to these poor sheep. And so it's hard for them and causes a lot of PTSD, I'm sure, for them, because they're being forced to be violent. So what remains is wool from animal sanctuaries. I just was at an animal sanctuary the other day. We now have one in Kansas, a new one in Kansas. And this, they had just sheared her about, I think she said 3 weeks ago. And it's in the 90s here and very humid. And she said, I'm going to have to shear her again because her wool was so thick and she was just panting. And so we were talking, well, you know, what's the most vegan thing to do with that wool? So I didn't know, but that wouldn't be, if we just used wool from sanctuaries, it still wouldn't be enough wool to make all the clothing that people need. So, yeah, we have some cattails in our pond, and I thought maybe I should harvest those little seed things that come out and make a little jacket out of that. I mean, that's really something we could do. There are a lot of cattails. And actually we may be in a situation where we're going to have to do that. But yes, and indigenous people, we need to be very respectful of them. I mean, they have lost so much, and including their ability to grow their own food if they're agriculturalists, or just to live if their land has been taken away from them. And so I certainly don't feel that this is the time to be telling them they have to go vegan if they're, in a dire straits and are trying to survive the horrible things that the cattle industry is doing to them in Brazil, for example, including killing them, not just taking their land, but killing them. It's a terrible, terrible thing. But I do believe that as we become closer and closer to creating the vegan world by 2026, right? That there will be more, if we can, when we do that, that will eliminate animal agriculture from Brazil, let's say. So they can then all go back to their land, the ones that are still living and still remember how to survive in their indigenous areas. And maybe we can work together with them to learn more ways to, be more vegan friendly, but certainly without oppressing them, and certainly without coming in as the people who know it all. We don't want to do that. So that's I think certainly part of what we're going to do is be patient with ourselves, but definitely not, try to overrun people like them who want to live in tribes, in small groups, where they, have a memory of how to survive. So does that answer the question?
Yeah. I mean, I think like you said, it's a complex problem.
It
And
is.
I think microfibers are a serious issue for the oceans and the water, which we rely on. But also just hearing you now, what's making me think of the Haida people. So we live in the Northwest, and the Haida are from Queen Charlotte Islands and Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
And the tribes up north, so Tsimshian and Tlingit, they traditionally made clothing out of cedar bark. So they pounded cedar bark to make diapers for babies, and wove their clothing out of cedar. The cedar tree, they call the tree of life. So I think there's this thing about going back to local, we're also hugely overpopulated. So that's another issue, because we're not talking about small groups. But I think, it does seem like we're going to have to go back to smaller tribes, smaller groups, where we grow locally, we take care of the land, and we learn more holistic ways of dressing ourselves and holistic lifestyles that will be the way forward. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's great to know that. We've got lots of cedar trees here in Kansas, so maybe we could learn something about that. And yeah, we couldn't grow if we all ended up having to be very local in small groups. We couldn't grow cotton here, I don't believe. So yeah, there would be a real need for learning things like that. But it's, I think because we understand the vegan value of non-harm and the ahimsa value, that will guide all our actions. And so if we can just keep that in our hearts as a very strong focus, that it will guide us because everything we're going to be doing is going to be a transition. And so being patient with, the fact that we have tires on our car, for example, that are not vegan. And then, finding a way. How do we, still get to places without riding horses? But, could we solar power electric bikes with a different kind of tire, something like that. But yeah, these are all questions that you all are really grabbing hold of and looking for solutions, which is so inspiring, because a lot of what I'm hearing on Facebook and places like that is, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And this is so awful, and this is so awful, and I just learned this, and this is so awful. And we need solutions. We need to be planning what we're going to do with our ahimsa nature, and just always be peeling off those layers of old ideas, questioning our own thoughts. Where did that thought come from? Is that a good thought? Is that an ahimsa thought? Is that going to nurture everyone around me, or is it going to do harm? And if it's going to do harm, then why do I have that thought? Where did it come from? It probably came from school, church, parents who just didn't know. I mean, they were programmed too. And of course the government, who do know. So, yeah, so it's a lot of questioning and also listening to each other, which is also what you guys are doing. We don't know all the answers at all. And so we really need to brainstorm and listen to each other. So I just applaud what you guys are doing. Yeah.
Judy, I had a question. I've been taking notes while you were speaking. Two things jumped out at me that I really would like for you to elaborate on. It was the idea of the stories that we inherit, the belief systems that we have that navigate our behaviors and our communication and our choices, and how those even get infiltrated as we try to challenge, as we try to awaken and we try to remember, then ideas like humane farms and humane ranches. Could you address that? And then I want to kind of then go into what you brought up about how religion also influences, and then the Interfaith Vegan Coalition.
Mm-hmm. So I'm not real clear what you're asking in the beginning. Like, how do we get programmed, or?
About help us understand the idea of what the humane is supposed to be telling us what is and what's actually going on. When you said humane, there's no such thing.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm with you now. Yes, I think Hope Bohanec does a really good job of explaining that. She has a book out about that. It's humane, as many of you know, is a word, a trick to make people think that they can actually eat animals without harming them. So that's one problem. It's impossible to eat humane meat because you have to kill an animal in order to eat that animal. And with milk, you have to take the baby away from the mother in order to steal the milk. And then the mother only lives 2 to 3 years. And a mother cow would normally live 20 years, but they just can't make it past that. They've been raped so many times because they have to keep producing milk. And they've been standing in their own waste for so long and in crowded conditions. So they're sick. And so they are taken to slaughter at usually three years of age, maybe 4 if they make it that long. And often their legs break when they are transported because they've lost so much calcium because of all the milk that's been stolen from them. And they've been bred to make a lot more milk than would be normal. And you can see that if you see a dairy cow next to, say, an Angus mother cow, the Angus's udder will be very small, just enough milk for her baby. The dairy cow's udder will be huge, dragging on the ground in the manure, by the way, and it's extremely painful. And so, and prone to disease and all kinds of infections. So there's the cruelty there. And then the cruelty in the egg business is beyond imagination. They're kept either in small cages, but in the so-called humane farms, they say they are given free range, but most of them are crowded into these huge, long barns with not enough ventilation. And to qualify as a humane egg-laying operation, they might have one little door that maybe a few birds could get out of. But for the most of the birds, they're trapped in there. There's millions of them shoved together into this barn, walking in their own feces and urine. So the ammonia is unbearable and causes their lungs to get infected and irritated to where they can hardly breathe. Their beaks are still cut off so that they won't bite each other out of frustration. So the cruelty in humane farms is over the top. If some people think, well, okay, so I won't do that, so I will buy eggs from a neighborhood person who's growing eggs, because now a lot of neighborhoods are letting people have chickens to get eggs. And the problem with that is, the cruelty with that, is that in order, when that person, say your neighbor Mary down the block, goes and gets her chickens, she's going to go to a farm store, and these chicks that she buys never got to see their mother. They were hatched in a hatchery, and they were then hatched. The little chicks go along a conveyor belt, and there's people there who sex them to figure out which ones are boys and which ones are girls. The boys, every one of them, goes either into a shredder alive or into a dumpster where they're suffocated. And I know most of you know this, and it's awful to even talk about, but anyone who is here that has not heard this, you need to know this, especially about backyard eggs, because it seems so nice. So that's the cruelty that begins, that Mary bought these chicks who never got to see their mother, never got to be nestled with her under her protective wings, never learned from her, and all their brothers were killed. And so that's the first thing. And then Mary finds out, oh, this one hen won't lay eggs anymore. She's tired. These hens have been bred to lay so many eggs, way more than a wild bird would have. And so they get exhausted, and they stop laying eggs, and you know, they're pretty close to death at that point. And what are they going to do? Well, if they're meat eaters, they're probably going to kill that chicken and eat her, and then just go get another chick. So that's the cruelty that exists if you thought, well, I could just go. And I did that myself. I found a farmer that, you know, had eggs, and the chickens and the ducks were running around free. And I thought, well, this is great, you know. And they don't need all their eggs, right? So I put blinders on, and so I know what that's like. And I also I found a farmer that had one dairy cow, and bought milk from him. And I thought, well, you know, there's the baby, and there's the mother cow, and they're petting her and grooming her. So that must be okay, right? No, it's not okay, because even though that baby was there, he was not allowed to drink her milk. And that baby, especially if he's a boy, he's going to go to a veal farm or to slaughter right away, or to a farmer that's going to raise him and then slaughter him. All baby boys. And if she has a baby girl, then that girl is going to go through what her mother's going through. And the mother also has to be artificially inseminated, which is a nice term, I guess you could say, for being raped. And because otherwise they would have to get a bull, and that's expensive. So, and by the way, speaking of that, where do they get the semen to artificially inseminate? From the bulls. And I don't even want to go there. The rack that I saw in a picture for the bull was pretty horrible. And, you know, maybe some of you all have actually seen this in person. It's unbelievable, the cruelty that human beings have invented over the last 10,000 years since animal agriculture was invented. And I like to say and emphasize that animal agriculture's twin is war. That's when war started, as far as we can tell. And also pandemics. So I guess really they're triplets. Pandemics, wars, and animal agriculture. And how we went down that road We don't know. It's very sad. But now we figured it out and we're getting off that road. We're going to create a vegan world. So, and you asked another question about religion, Jackie.
Yes. I really want to really create the opportunity now to bring in our work with the Interfaith Vegan Coalition and how we can invite our spiritual leaders with this awareness and bring the awareness of the cruelty and what is underscoring all of our religious faiths.
Okay, that's a much easier topic on your ears than what we just talked about. I hope that didn't upset anyone, because it's very hard to know about that, but it's very important for people to know about it. And you never know what's going to tip people, over to the vegan understanding. But the Interfaith Vegan Coalition that Lisa and I and Thomas Jackson founded a couple of years ago, maybe it was 3 years ago, we're really excited about it. The goal of it is to reach people of faith and help them see that their actions are not aligned with their true values. Their true values, almost every religion, is the golden rule, to, make it really succinct. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, which could be called ahimsa, loving kindness. And, every religion has their own way of saying, yes, this is our highest goal. This is who we are supposed to be. And what would Jesus do? Well, he would not do this. We know that. But that's a question that Christians use, and all the other religions are doing the same thing, saying, how can we be better? How can we help people be happier and kinder to each other? And yet, they may also be all going together, the church, say, to a rodeo, or they're going on a fishing expedition, or they're talking in their place of worship about how great bacon tastes. That happened to a dear friend of mine who was at a Unity church, and it was Father's Day, and the minister was her name of her sermon was something about isn't bacon great, or something like that, because fathers love bacon. All fathers, right, love bacon. So it seemed like a good idea to the minister. So one person, there were, I think, 3 vegans in the audience. One of them left, and then my friend stayed and another woman stayed. And we talked about it, and she decided to go to the minister and explain to her how that harmed her heart for her to hear that. And to explain what veganism was, it gave her a teaching moment. And the minister really listened. And so one of the things we want to get across to places of worship, ministers, rabbis, and all these spiritual leaders, is that they have vegan members, likely, and that they need to be very sensitive to them, inclusive, we're all talking about inclusivity now, and respectful. And so that's one point. But the other point is, hey, talking about bacon is not in alignment with your highest value, which is non-harm, the golden rule, however you want to phrase it. So what we've done, well, first of all, Thomas created the incredible film, A Prayer for Compassion, where he interviewed a lot of vegan spiritual leaders so that they could explain to people who watched the film how veganism is in perfect alignment with each of the religions that Thomas interviewed. So I think most of you have seen it. It's just a wonderful film, and Silas is one of the producers. I think he's the executive producer. But anyway, it's fabulous, and I've shown it several times, and then had talks afterwards, Q&A afterwards, and I do have, I might be posted on your documents, talking points to bring up after showing the film. So I think you all have that here. But anyway, I mean on Basecamp. But then, so that's one part of Interfaith Vegan Coalition. And of course, Thomas's Compassionate Living Circles, which is also part of Basecamp. There's a group that's formed to work on that. So that's a thing that the places of worship can form a Compassionate Living Circle, or one of the members can form one and talk about vegan values and how they align with your spiritual values. And then the other thing that we have on our website is, it is a coalition. So we have a list of all the members to the coalition, and we're, of course, always welcoming more. And so that's one thing we have. We have a declaration that all of those members have signed. And then we have kits, activist kits. And we have one general one that applies, could apply to any place of worship or an ethical tradition, or even just, you know, a regular group of people, a book club or something that gets together regularly. And so it's kind of a general one. And then we have one for Christianity, a couple of different ones for, well, we have Islam, Buddhism, of course, Judaism, Jainism, Zoroastrianism, and several others. We don't have all of them. We're still trying to get more. And of course, there's lots of subgroups, especially in the Christian religion. We have a unity kit. So, and we have, in addition to those kits, we have flyers which the Compassionate Living Circles has access to, so that anyone who wants to start a Compassionate Living Circle can get, either have us, they can order those brochures, or they can print them off from the Compassionate Living Circle place. I think Thomas is the main place to get that, but I believe they're on here too, on Basecamp. In the kits, what we have, kind of the format kind of is quotes from famous, say famous Buddhists about vegan living and non-harm. And then we have articles that people can, well, links to articles that people can get if they want to share them on Facebook or with their entire congregation or group, whatever. We've got a list of films, a list of books, and trying to think what else. Well, we have 10 steps, actually, but right here, 10 steps bring vegan values of compassion, nonviolence, and justice to your place of worship. So that's on there too, and that's nice and succinct. Number one, for example, is gather, get together, form a Compassionate Living Circle to practice and promote vegan living within your place of worship, and contact Interfaith IDA USA for help. So we're available by email to help. and then find resources at interfaithvegancoalition.org. And then 2 is sponsor vegan, cruelty-free, universal meals. I like the word universal. That's a PCRM term, I believe, because what they're saying is, in fact, one of their projects is to get all airlines to have universal meals. That's if they ever serve food again. But universal meals means no animal products, no allergens, no gluten, and so everyone can eat them. And what a beautiful idea that is. So, but anyway, and then educate and pray and visualize and practice nonviolence and all kinds of good things on these 10 steps. So, and that's available actually on Interfaith Vegan Coalition, and I also have that on my website, which is peacetoallbeings.com, and you can print it off from there too. So that kind of covers Interfaith Vegan Coalition. We love everybody to join us. We have monthly meetings. The first, I think it's the first, or is it the second Monday of the month? Yeah, second Monday of the month. And that's a planning meeting. And Lisa and I were talking yesterday about starting to have a quarterly meeting where we would have representatives from all the coalition members from the different religions, which would be so cool, and hear from them how they're using the kits, what kind of progress they're seeing, because we want to make sure to keep this moving forward, because we're waking the sleeping giant, right? Something like 80-90% of the people in the world believe in God and want to be good and want to love. And if we can wake that sleeping giant up through the churches and the places of worship, just imagine we could have a really fast awakening and massive awakening. If we could get ministers and rabbis and priests and all those to say this from the pulpit, oh my goodness, what a huge thing that would be. Lisa and I interviewed, we do an interview every other month. We had Jackie on, which was wonderful. And we interviewed a priest who is up in Canada, and he went vegan because he saw Vegucated. And when he saw the baby cow being taken away from his mother and the baby and the mother crying, he said, that's it. I'm going vegan. And he's a Catholic priest. And so he was, by doing that and by making a public statement about it and preaching about it in his church, he was really taking a risk, but he's doing it. So, so I know all of his people are, going, well, if he's into this, maybe I ought to look into it. And because he's their leader. So a spiritual leader, and he's saying this is what Jesus wants us to do. And so, yeah. So that's, I think IVC is very important for that reason. And so, yeah, we do want to get the word out that it's there and that we have all kinds of resources for lots of different religions. And we do need help with some of the religions that are missing. We need to create kits for those. So if anybody wants to help with that, please let me or Lisa know. So,
Judy, what is the website? We've been asked again for the Interfaith Vegan Coalition, and then your website again, if you could just repeat that. I think Jamin has a question after.
Okay, mine is peace to the word to, T-O, allbeings.com. And then the Interfaith Vegan Coalition, if you just Google Interfaith Vegan Coalition, it will redirect you to a very long link, because it's part of IDA, In Defense of Animals. So, and they're hosting us, which is wonderful. They've been just wonderful to us. So, but it is just one little website within a giant website, idausa.org. So, but the best way to get there is just to Google Interfaith Vegan Coalition. Oh, Jamin, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jackie, Judy. So happy you're here, sharing with all of us. I just first want to take a moment and just welcome everyone who recently arrived. I see Daniel recently arrived, Lisa, Dev, Christopher, everyone. Welcome, everyone. I just want to comment that a lot of folks came here to the conversation, which is just now merging with the block party. So there might be just a little bit of confusion, but part of the reason, actually one of the main reasons we're doing this, is so that we can get the Food Healers project off the ground. And that really addresses multiple issues concurrently. And it addresses the veganism issue by simply delivering plant-based foods to everyone who wants it. And so in my mind, just given that the hunger crisis is growing exponentially right now, it just seems a much more practical way to actually get people over into the vegan camp by just, why tell them when you can show them? Why show them when you can feed them? Feed them the plant-based food. So anyway, I just wanted to make a little plug for that. And just so you know, and we'd love to have you on those segments as well, in the 2-hour segment prior to this Divine Feminine segment, which we're in right now. And just for those who just joined, we're a little over halfway through the Divine Feminine segment, which ends at the top of the hour, at which point we transition to another 2-hour segment called The World Beyond Money, which is super awesome. All these segments are awesome. But anyway, Food Healers we do from 7 to 9 in the morning Pacific time, as well as 7 to 9 in the evening Pacific time. So 4 hours of Food Healers every day. And again, we're putting together this massive coalition to not just solve the food problem, but the climate problem, and frankly, all of our problems through the power of the collective. So anyway, just wanted to put in my 2 cents for those, and back. Go ahead, sweetie.
And also, Judy, I was just saying to Jamin, when we get the food program up and running, maybe we could put your book in with the food baskets, the Homo Ahimsa, so that gets delivered to people's doorsteps along with the food, so we've got to feed this and feed this, the stomach, the mind, right, and the heart.
Yeah. Oh, I love that idea. Well, let me know, because I can get them, because I'm the author, and I went through this program with Amazon, unfortunately, but it was cheap, so I can get the books fairly inexpensively, which I would not be able to from a publisher. And so, yeah, I could, get a lot of books to you to do that. But I love this food program. I just think it's genius, and it's so needed, because, as you're saying, there's more and more hunger that's going to be happening as we go along in the situation that we're in right now. And this is, it's a kind of an amazing thing, because not only does it teach people about plant-based eating and vegan values, but it also keeps them from dying of hunger. And so it's a compassionate act. And I think it's just so beautiful. I just love it. And talk about the Divine Mother. That is certainly a picture, an out-picturing of that. The Divine Mother would want to feed everyone. And so, yeah, so here we are, and that mothering, nurturing desire that all of us really have, however buried it might be, this is a way to express it. in such a beautiful way. And I can see that there might be a way to work together with Interfaith Vegan Coalition with this, somehow link them together, because there will be hungry people in the churches and the synagogues, mosques, etc., who will need food. And this would be a way maybe to communicate with the actual place of worship itself and say, hey, we can help with feeding people. So, so there might be a way that we can work together that way. But yeah, I have not listened in. I need to do that because I really believe in this. And I'm just so thrilled that I mean, Vegan World 2026 is so full of answers, you know? And let's do this. And I mean, we know what the problems are. What are the solutions? Let's go for that. And you guys are really after that. So I really admire you so much. I just love it. So yeah, I'll talk to Lisa about that and see if she can't join in on, so it's every morning, 7 to 9 Pacific time.
Every Friday morning.
Oh, Friday. Oh, okay.
And just so you all know, the block party is 24 hours starting Friday morning, 7 a.m., going a full 24 hours till Saturday morning, 7 a.m. But the rest of the days of the week, we have stuff going on every day, Monday through Friday, starting at noon Pacific time. Actually, on Tuesdays, we start at 11 a.m. So what we're doing is Tuesdays, we have a separate program, but what we're doing is we're combining these all together so that humanity has a single point of entry, literally this link. And our goal is to get to 24/7 as quickly as possible so that no matter where you are in the world, no matter what time it is, what day of the week, you can come to one place. And what we're creating out of this single landing point is we're calling it the lounge. And with much support from Daniel and everyone here, the idea of the lounge is that this becomes like a hub. And so let's say a month from now, let's say, Judy, you come back again to present on Divine Feminine 1 month from now. What you'll likely see is you'll first come into a lounge, which is just a big hub. And we say, oh, great, Judy, you're here for Divine Feminine, right? You say, right. I say, great. We're going to move you to breakout room number 1. And that's where that program is happening. And basically, a bunch of us here will be in the lounge just receiving the influx of humanity. What we're experiencing here is the very beginning of humanity coming together in a single network, a single point of entry, etc. Now, as soon as I say single network, I stop myself because the bigger vision is a network of networks. So what we're really creating here is like a model network, right? And says, this is how we think it ought to be done. What do you think? If you've got a different network where you're doing it differently, right? I don't know, excluding all the men or something like that. Tell us, you know, we'd love to know about it, you know, so that we can connect and talk. Because the reality is different tribes are coming at this from different angles. And that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. So the idea of the network of networks is that all these different tribes can have essentially a united nations, a united networks, where we say, hey, we respect that you're coming at this differently from we are. You know, we believe in plant-based, you still believe in eating meat. Let's talk. We're not necessarily going to eat, you know, share the same meal, but let's at least talk and, you know, connect that way. But in the meantime, we're keeping true to our mission, which is all about saving, healing, and transforming life on earth. And so, you know, we're standing where we stand and inviting everyone to join us here, literally everyone. But if you got your own thing going on, let's at least connect network to network.
Right. Okay. Wow. I mean, it's another, I read someplace, it said, do something impossible every day. One impossible thing every day. And you guys are definitely doing that. Not to say it's impossible, because we believe it's possible. But, you know, it sounds impossible. You know? Just completely transforming the world. Okay, let's do it. Yeah. Why not? Well, and really, we have to, because we're at the crossroads. We can't keep going the way we're going, because, as Sailesh says, we're going to kill off all the wild vertebrates in a very short time, and there's plenty of evidence for that. And the oceans, with our clothing, even if it was just the clothing, is getting polluted beyond belief. And so, yeah, we simply have to take this other road. And those of us who've been vegan for a long time, it's like, and I said this in my book, it's like suddenly veganism is not just a fringe movement for animal rights. It's about everybody. It's about saving the world. And yeah, I mean, it really is. Without veganism, without a plant-based approach and an ahimsa approach from here on out, then yeah, it's not going to work. Everything depends on the world becoming vegan. And when I say vegan, I mean plant-based, but also kind, loving, and non-violent. Everything depends on that. And so all of a sudden, animal rights is the solution for human survival and the survival of all of nature. So we worked all these many years towards this point, and we're going, well, good, we know how to do this. So we've got the answer. It's kind of amazing. And so, okay, guys, let's do it. Yeah.
It's good.
Well, yeah, it seems in any case, the little tiny coronavirus is whooping our butts and is pushing us in that direction. And I've been hearing a lot of conversations on other platforms about UFOs and things, but I personally believe that the coronavirus is an UFO that's invaded the earth and it's taken over. It's a really good teacher. It
kind of looks like a UFO, doesn't it?
Yeah, totally.
So at least the way they're drawing it. But yes, I've read some of that too. And I certainly, if there are some extraterrestrials out there that know how to help us, I'm all for it. But I do believe that we have divine help. I really believe that so strongly. I feel that many people are feeling the presence of God in a new way, or the presence of the divine, whatever word feels comfortable to people. There's enlightenment going on all over the world, and that's another source of hope, in addition to just on the ground work, is this belief that we are being helped, because we're finally getting it. We're finally going, oh, so that's the way we were supposed to live. And of course, they talk about it in Genesis in the Bible of the animals being our companions, and not, of course, there was no meat eating going on at the very, very beginning. And I think there's many other legends like that too, about who we really are. We are the partners, the friends, the lovers of all these other creatures on this earth, and the plants as well, the trees, the amazing, amazing trees. Oh my goodness. I really feel like the trees were one of the main people that were making me write this book. Going, are you done yet? I just feel so close to trees, and I feel like they're so close to the divine. They're just the way their roots go down into the earth and touch each other, and the fungi down there and the worms and everybody down there, if they can, if they're not being cut down or burned. And they're literally crying to us, and the animals are too. We're running out of time. Please, you've got to do this. And we hear you. We know you're out there, you vegans. and I think they're lending it. The animals and the plants, I believe, are lending us a lot of empowerment, as well as the divine, and maybe the nice extraterrestrials. And you know, we can use all the help we can get. So, but yeah, I love that we're doing this. I love that I'm alive to see this. And Teilhard de Chardin talked about this time. He called it the noosphere, the field of mind. And that when people discovered love, they will have discovered the real fire. And that's where we are. And he actually said, I wish I could be alive to see it. So he knew that this was going to happen, that we would be here talking about this. And that's a beautiful thing. And maybe he's helping us in some way. Maybe Gandhi's helping us in some way. It's just, it really is an exciting time to be alive. And I feel like it's really important for us to, as I said, listen to people. So many people are scared to death about all these things that are going on. It was bad enough with all the warnings of, you know, the icebergs all melting and all this. And now we've got this whole COVID thing and people's jobs ending and businesses. And so I feel like people are really scared, and we're seeing a lot of violence among people, just people who normally would not be violent, screaming at each other, hitting each other because they're not wearing a mask or something, or calling the police. And then the police being possibly violent. I think we need to be a reassurance to them, because we have this, the center of peace within us that we get largely from eating plant-based, because plants grow from the energy of the sun and the water. And so that's what is coming into us when we eat plants, the loving energy of the sun, rather than the violent energy of an animal who was killed or stolen from. And so we gain that wonderful center of peace within us that we need to stay very close to. But I believe that we have a real gift to give to people. It may not be, hey, look, you need to go vegan right now and that'll solve everything. But just to be a listener, to let them know it's okay. We've got plans. There is hope. We can get through this, not with vaccinations, but with a vegan world, and with love, and with caring for each other, and caring for the animals and the earth. And let them know that there are solutions, real solutions being worked on and planned for, and that they can join us, and we love them. So I just feel like my heart just really kind of hurts for all these people that are just so frightened. And that's why they're losing their tempers and being so confused. So yeah, I think we can really be a force for good there.
Thank you for that, Judy. Daniel had his hand up.
Just give me one moment. Had to close the door. I wanted to respond to what you said about, Judy, what you said about that we see so much anger and so much divisiveness. Last night I was on Facebook and several of my friends, independent even from each other, were talking about that. And I think the elephant in the room is that when we come together, not only our good sides are coming up. In fact, through the energy of our gathering, all kinds of historical stored under the surface tensions, trauma, memories of a very violent past that has been going on for centuries, that sits in our nervous system and sits in our cells. That memory has to be redeemed. If we don't do that work, every time I've been into various organizations that came together, and what happens, and most of the time people are unaware of it. I was unaware of it in the beginning, but I started to see it clear and clear, because when we become one, like what you were talking about, James, one hub, a true one humanity. And you know, I think the other day I talked about, a little bit pointed to this, because oneness can stay so abstract and such a sort of a weird abstract idea that a lot of people, particularly in the political philosophical sphere, they don't know what you're talking about. They think you're like some cuckoo spiritual person. So then I turn to them and say, well, do you see two natures? Do we have two natures? Do we have two waters or two airs? And then when you dig deeper into that, then even from an awareness cognitive point of view, today we have all the knowledge about that everything is interconnected, and that you can't take anything out of the wholeness without it dying or the wholeness dying. And so us coming together as one is in one way new, because I don't think it has happened before. I think that's what Mother Earth is doing when she sends white people to the Americas to, in a very ugly way, destroy the cozy tribal setness of North America. I know that's a very, I'm not set on any of these truths, but it seems like Mother Earth is pushing us forward and pushing us into oneness, because she wants to become one. She wants to become conscious. And she wants to experience that oneness of all her beings, which has been here for the longest time, but not conscious. It becomes conscious in us. And so it's a conscious step that we're taking. But on the other side, it is the truth that's underlying everything. So it's also simply an awakening. And what we have to be aware of is that when we awaken to that, the response is that the resistance in us comes up. Because the idea sphere cannot do it by itself. That's the top-down approach. Veganism, in a way, is a mirrored image of that. Veganism makes sense mentally. It's clearly the step that we need to take. But whoever has talked to people who are addicted to meat, you know how they react when you ask them to drop their meat. They don't have just a mental argument with you. They react very emotionally, because their meat diet is part of the suppression that needs to stay in place in order to keep functioning in a competitive world, in order to be enrolled in the game of getting ahead. You know, what does it really mean? Getting ahead means I get ahead of you. And that we're also used to that, you know, I'm getting my stuff, you get your stuff. That's not easy to get over. And if we ignore that, if we ignore the collective psychological impact of our gathering, it will derail us. It has derailed us every time. Because you can see that the people who are inflamed right now and angry they band together in some club that has found an enemy image that they can get against, and so then they can find each other in their hate or in their assurance that these people over there are the problem. But to come together without that, to become together from a purely leaning into each other point of view is not possible unless we're waking up, unless we're doing the work. Because between us and the awakened state only is the loaded up history and the stack of challenges that are in every one of us. And the beginning point is just to acknowledge that when we come together and not ignore it and not to say, oh, I'm already there. No, none of us is there, because when we come together, things are activated that we hardly can activate by ourselves. You can sit for as long as you want in meditation. The things that come to the surface when you truly fall in love with each other are only there when the love is flowing between each other. And the oneness, when we look at each other, I call it making oneness personal. I'm one with you. No, you're far away from me in some way, you know, but at the same time, we're most intimate right now in this weird time where we stay at home. We have to realize that we're connected to each other in a deeper way, in a more profound way that we haven't yet fully brought online. And as we bring it online, we have to be each other's keepers, or what Ram Dass, he says, we have to walk each other home. And I'm a voice for that. I feel like we need to generate in this gathering a metabolic engine of our energy, because when we make oneness personal, we close the circle and energy comes online in a way that has never happened. It's so powerful. It's not about one enlightened person. It's about us waking up together. And as that happens, we have to be sort of like an engine that metabolizes all these, the past, you know, like Terence McKenna, he put it so beautiful. He said, we can redeem all this violence. We can redeem all these things that we have done to each other if we give it meaning. If we realize that all the violence led us to this moment, and that the death of so many people, even today with COVID, useless death that shouldn't even happen, is just because we're not paying attention. That we can redeem that if we give it meaning, if we find a way. And for me, that meaning is that we are not only here for each other, but that we are here for those who will be the last to get it, and have them in our mind, even in the first day as we're doing it. The most close person around the planet still has a body, still has cells, still is part of nature. They may not realize that in their head and in their heart. They may be close and criminals and everything, but they're still a part of nature, part of us. And what we've done so much in our humanity is try to make them change. And they're the last ones who can change. How can we ask them to change? They are the bastions of the old culture. We have to dig away their fundaments, what's the foundation of what their life is. And before they know, right, just like the Berlin Wall fell and nobody knew it, nobody saw it coming. A week before that, nobody knew it would fall. And then it just fell because the foundations were gone. The activists had slowly pulled it all away. So that's my 2 cents.
Oh, I love what you said, Daniel. You're so right on various points that you made. But one that really struck me is how important it is for us to be cognizant of what's going on in our own hearts and minds as far as the layers of programs that we've been, taught since birth and before birth, since conception, listening to our culture, our various cultures, and all of them being pretty much, except for a few indigenous people, very much in line with the domination paradigm. So everyone has these, this PTSD, multiple PTSD, like you're saying, and they get triggered. And especially, like you said, when we're together, they get triggered. One word sometimes can trigger us, and we'll go off on a tangent, and then we won't hear what the others are saying. And that is just critical right now, to be able to listen to each other. And especially, like you said, the people who are going to get it last, really have to listen to them and show them love. And
well, can I jump in for a moment here?
Sure.
I always hear the argument that we need to listen to the other side and reach across the aisle. And I think that's an addiction. It's always, by default, we go into trying to solve the problem that seems to be in the room. But the bigger problem is, I think, that we haven't turned up the love for each other enough. And that we, in a way, need to tell them, hey, look, we're just doing our thing over here. You do your thing. We're not taking your money. We won't take your power away. Just relax. We're not against you. We're not trying even to listen to you or convince you or transform everything in us when we listen to you. It's very hard to listen to them. They're assholes. Sorry for saying, but I mean, look at what the politics of our days are. There is nothing beautiful about it. But to turn toward each other, just like internally, we have feelings in us that are hard to deal with. And anybody who doesn't have them, you're not yet fully here with us. As we walk into this future, all these feelings come up, and they're unknown, they're deep, they're activating our true humanity, and there's a lot to show for. We're billions of years old in our cellular makeup, and to get that into our brain is an adventure. But so we turn into our pain rather than rejecting it, and we breathe into it, we transform it, and in that we get the wisdom online that comes from the pain. In the same way, to turn into each other rather than turn away to the ones that don't want to hear us and we don't want to hear them, turn towards each other and say, how can I be closer to you? How can I set up, unleash this incredible energy of love that we can turn up to? I don't see an end to it, When we go on the street and we drum, I'm a drummer, and we go the first Fridays on the street. I think I may have mentioned this the other day. So we start drumming with each other, and there's not much going on. But as we become one in the music, there is a literally electromagnetic field generated. And when that's there, people stop and they're attracted to it. And that's what I observed. I observed it over and over and over again, that when people have the guts, the courage to turn into each other and turn up the love, turn up the intimacy, there's something irresistible about it. And my prophecy is, big word, I know, but my prophecy is that's what we have to do. No matter what, that's what we have to do. Sorry for jumping in like this.
If I may, Daniel, that is so beautifully put. I love this conversation. And I want to add to that one person can be that beacon of light as well. I think if you amp up that love and non-judgment, that's a really important one, and that state of gratitude, you can walk into a space and light it up. And even someone who's working in the post office and hates their job, they will light up with you. And I believe that's part of this sharing this light that we all carry. And I also wanted to add to that right now we are in a period of Pluto transiting, and Pluto is bringing up all this very ancient stuff that you're talking about, Daniel. It's saying we've all seen evil, we've seen horrors in past lives. If you believe in that, I I personally do. And so we're carrying these wounds, these cultural wounds from a very, very long past that are coming now to the surface, that are being activated by these planets, and that we get to look at and work on healing, not just alone anymore. And that's the beautiful thing that you're talking about, Daniel, is that, and Judy, is that we can do this healing together, and we are being called to do this together. Thank you.
Yeah, I remembered I had this quote in my book by Rumi that fits in here pretty well. Be the one who, when you walk in, blessing shifts to the one who needs it most. Even if you've not been fed, be bread. I just love that. It's kind of what we're talking about. But in order to be bread, we do need to do that inner work that Daniel's talking about. I wanted to mention real quick, because I don't know if we're running out of time or not, but I was studying a little bit, noticing all this anger that's out there and the taking sides and whatnot that is not helpful. That there's 3 reactions to stress and danger. One is to freeze, one is to run, and one is to fight. And so what people are feeling right now is they can't run and they can't fight. So they're freezing, and when you freeze, you're not thinking clearly. And so then you look for an enemy to fight against. And so maybe that's your next door neighbor. Maybe it's the person that's not wearing a mask. Maybe it's everybody on your Facebook that's saying stuff that's triggering you. And so I guess I'm just saying that because to help have compassion for these people that are so angry right now and so confused, and that we don't want to go there right now. And so yeah, what we're talking about, I think, is really important as far as taking care of our own inner triggers, our own inner thoughts that are just knee-jerk reactions to things, to words, to people, to people telling us what to do, whatever it may be. And I think a good practice is to, as soon as you feel something like stress or anger, to go, oh, what's that about? Where did that come from? And instead of reacting to it in a negative way, go inside and kind of like Daniel's talking about maybe, and ask, well, where did that come from? Was that, and you might get an answer and you might not, but at any rate, you're not reacting to the stress. You're taking charge of your own feelings and saying, the way I want to react is with love, without any judgment. And this is opposing that. So I need to be quiet now and understand what's going on in me. So, and I think that's a really helpful practice at a time like this when there's so many triggers going on. So are we about out of time, or I'm not seeing a clock.
Yeah, we're getting close. We're 7 minutes till the top of the hour. We often, but don't always have to take a break before the top of the hour when we launch our next segment. But I just have to say, this is one of the greatest conversations I've ever been in my life, and I really feel all of us coming together and collectively getting it right. That we need to do a lot more of this, and we need to involve everyone. Starting with those, not who are the last to get it, but starting with those who are the next to get it, right? Who are people we know in our own communities, right?
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, because look, there is, easily just take the 1% of humanity that is most ripe for this conversation, right? That's 77 million people, right? Our numbers have reached such a magnitude that even 1% of us is now just this giant mass of humanity, right? And so I say let's focus on that 1% who's most ready for this conversation, because once 75 million of us are here in the network, having these conversations day in, day out, and ferreting out the last detail of what we need to do to actually launch Food Healers in a big way in even one city. Once we've eradicated hunger in one city, that's news. That's a story, and that's a feel-good story that the nation and the world are hungry for. They're hungry for food, but they're also hungry but they're also hungry for this story. Once we prove that we can do this in one city, every city is going to want it. And we're going to do it. We're simply going to do it. And, you know, I've asked the funny riddle a few times. What's the best and fastest way to get the world to go vegan? Feed them plant-based foods. It's so simple. You know, you don't have to shame them. You don't have to judge them. You just feed them plant-based foods. It's that simple. Anyway, so since I've got the mic, I'll do a little bit of framing for what's going on here, because we're actually crossing two different streams today. The conversation meets the block party. And so, you know, over time, what this is going to evolve to become, this room right here is evolving to become this central hub where everyone comes here, and then there's all these breakout rooms or even other Zoom meetings in other parts of the Zoomosphere. And, but for the moment, we haven't actually done that. We're just kind of all here together, right? And that's, for me, that's totally fine. I'm actually going to ask Brett what he prefers, since he is the leader of the next 2-hour segment on A World Beyond Money, because all this goes together, right? We have to exercise the greed, right? And this, you know, this pattern of hoarding if we're ever going to start sharing. And so anyway, so Brett, you don't have to answer now, but just think about it. And in fact, I welcome everyone's input. Do we want to go to a breakout room for A World Beyond Money and leave the lounge here just as a lounge, as a hub to direct traffic and welcome new people and all that? Or should we just leave everything right here in the lounge in one room and have A World Beyond Money right here, right? And
I
Judy,
vote for, oh, I'm sorry, hon.
Oh, I'm sorry, Danny. No, you go ahead. You go ahead, sweetie.
Thought you were taking a vote. I vote for a breakout. For a breakout Zoom room, if that's possible. There you go.
Definitely possible. Yeah.
I have just a thought. Hi, Danny. It's kind of interesting, though, when people turn up to the lounge and are part of a conversation that's ongoing, because say I turn up here and I want to talk about banana slugs. I'm just picking that out of the blue. And there's Brett talking about a world without money. And I might not have known about that topic before. And I start listening and I'm like, oh, a world without money, that's going to help banana slugs. You know, so I'm just wondering about this cross-fertilization that could happen if we don't at the moment have breakout rooms.
Yeah, and that's going to be an issue all the time. It's like, at what point do you intercept a conversation and say, okay, you guys are on to something. Let's give you another place. I mean, I think what we need is a directory. What's live now? You know, I don't know if there's a way to do that, but if there were, it's like, yeah. I mean, come into the lounge, see what's available to you. Wow, this is like, you know, kismet. This has been on my mind today. Boom, there's a place for it. So I don't know if that's, you know, but if there's anything I could do to help move that, you know, forward, I mean, I think that would be ideal.
Yeah, that's precisely the vision. And see, right now we're just on the journey to get there. And it'll be a journey of steps and evolution and whatnot. So right now, part of the reason we're all together in one room is that we can say, hey, you know, this is the big idea. What do you think? And what's our next step? Is it to create a breakout room or just to stay here? Right. And I don't think there's any one right answer. But anyway, love to hear more thoughts. And we're almost at the top of the hour, a couple minutes away. And Brett, just so you know, you're welcome to go long. There's no hard stop at 1 o'clock. So
could I just pause that conversation for 1 second, because I just wanted to go back to something you were saying, Jamin, about feeding hungry people. I think the timing is really interesting, because from the New York Times, what I was reading today, there are a lot of mayors who are getting sick and tired of government policy. So I see that they're actually taking a stand now for things like mandating masks or things that we know need to happen. And so I think this could be a time to reach out to those local governing bodies to get them on board to helping feed people who are hungry. So I just wanted to add that in. I know it's a little side comment, but it just seems timing. Things are starting to line up where things are going to be possible now.
Yeah, timing is perfect. Brett wrote a comment into the chat, and I'm just going to go ahead and read it. Or Brett, you go ahead if you want to just articulate it. Mm-hmm.
Hello, can anybody hear me?
Oh, Santana.
Oh, yes, Sanatana, welcome. Yes.
Woo! Give me a minute to catch my breath. You guys are incredible. And I'm just really happy to be here with you. I don't even know how I got here, but I'd like to stay.
Stay. You've come to the right place. Welcome home. Welcome home, Sanatana. Welcome.
Well, you're making me cry. I think that's the best thing that happened all morning.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. We in fact, we were just talking in the last couple of days that in crying, they found that in tears, there are, what are these, neurotransmitters, whatever. We're literally flushing out the bad thoughts, the bad connections.
Can I have a minute on that?
Sure, Sanatana, go ahead.
Okay. I found that, and I totally agree with you. That's why I wanted that 1 minute. It might take me 2. But your nose runs when you cry. And when you sniff and you swallow, you get the Amrit that's written about in the books, on yoga. Probably Patanjali's sutras might mention it. And it's a secret we're not supposed to share. But we're also told not to cry. So maybe there's some kind of evil genius behind all that shit, I cry as much as I can and I swallow every drop. And that's where I find my peace. Was that within 1 minute?
Beautiful, Sanatana.
I wish you could see my smiling face.
Well,
I'm smiling so hard I think I'm going to break. But I don't have a camera. Well, I do. I just haven't figured out how to hook it up.
Well, the beautiful thing too, Sanatana, is that your tears, help our tears to flow. So I actually have tears in my eyes, and so there's a connection happening, and then we all get the benefit of our tears. So thank you for sharing your tears with us.
Did I find this? I guess I don't understand anything anymore. I'm kind of like on autopilot, and I don't know where I'm going or what I'm doing, and I'm loving it. I found one day, I don't even know how it happened, but I ended up on this Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and I scrolled down. I don't even know how I got there, and I scrolled down and I found this 2020 harmonic convergence. And I'd been to the other 2, one in Sedona and one in Joshua Tree. And I thought, well, my God, I never heard of this one, but I don't want to miss it. And I could see by the background that it looked like Ojai. So it's only an hour and a half's drive from where I live. So I went immediately. Well, not quite. I packed up and I think I went the next day. But I went to Ojai not knowing where it was or what it was. And somehow I made a phone call and I got this lead to the retreat. And so I showed up, and Mark was in the middle of a presentation in that moment. Well, I didn't know I was interrupting anything. I just saw his face and I'd known it, I'd recognize it. And I just walk up to him and boom, he asked me to sit down, and we shared a few minutes with everyone. And I don't know now where I'm sharing another one of those moments. I don't know how I got here. And I know that this is where I belong. and I never want to leave. So
you don't have to leave, and in fact, we're getting very close to the point where this will be 24/7, and you literally won't have to leave.
Well, that was my idea. Excuse me for talking, but that was my idea. I have a Zoom channel, but I don't know how to use it, and I wanted it to be 24/7. And anytime that I wasn't available to you, I was going to share the screen and show all the movies and things that I think that have brought me to my present state of mind. And I think we're going to save the world.
Heck yes. Heck yes. All righty. Thank you so much, Sanatana, and welcome everyone. We're in the middle of
That was beautiful.
Yeah, we're in the middle of an amazing conversation. I just want to honor our speaker for the next 2 hours. Well, first of all, maybe I'll take a pause on this. Well, no, I don't want to pause this recording yet, because this is good stuff that we're addressing here. And Judy, I definitely want to give you a proper send off, but only when you're ready to go. I'd love for you to just stick around all day and all night. So somebody lock the door. Jackie locked the door so Judy can't leave. But
I can hang out for a little bit, and
right.
I'm very interested in this whole money thing. So yeah.
Okay, great. Well, before we shift to that, I just want to join Jackie and Melissa and everyone. Let's all join together in giving Judy a beautiful hug and so much gratitude and love and appreciation for all you've been doing your whole life. You're muted right now at the moment, we would love for you to be just a permanent, just like Sanatana just moved in here and now he's not leaving,
Yeah.
Sweetie, we've got
just
an bed, right? Yeah.
Just live here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get the yurt up in the garden.
Yeah, just move in. And because here's the thing, humanity we need to come together like this, or it's just simply not going to happen on its own.
Yeah. I'd also like to add in, Judy, thank you for another amazing segment of the Divine Feminine. Melissa, my sister, thank you so much for creating, for Jamin, for having this sacred space, for the law of attraction, bringing us all together. We are spiritual beings, and we are finding one another, and we're coming home. And this was coming out of this was actualizing out of us just following our hearts and responding to our mother's call. And our brothers and sisters, our sentient brothers and sisters, who are calling out to us and demanding that we remember and be our best selves. And that's what's happening. And I just want to thank you all for being here. I love you all, and I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And we definitely are doing this.
And thank you guys for having me. I'm just so really honored and humbled to be here. I'm overwhelmed by what you're doing and the love that you're bringing to the world. Wow. So I'm definitely part of this as often as I can be. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Thank you for being here, Judy. Thank you, Jackie, and everyone. I think it would be appropriate to end with a Haida song, if you guys are okay with that. And this is a song that the Haida sing to thank Mother Earth for all that she provides us with. They raise their hands to thank the sky and the earth and all the animals and the trees and one another. So it's this gesture, and it's a repeated verse, so you guys sing along. Yo, ho, yeah. Oh, you want to do that?
Oh,
okay.
No, you lead. You lead.
Yeah, hey.
Yeah, hey. Yeah, hey. Ah, ah, ha, ha. Yeah, hey. Yeah, hey. Yeah, hey. Yeah, hey. Yeah, hey. Yeah, hey. Ah, ah, ha, ha. Yeah, hey. Yeah, hey.
Woo! Hawa, Awa. Awa is Mother Earth in Haida, and Hawa is thank you. So the Haida say Hawa, Awa. Thank you, Mother Earth. And thank you all for being here. We love you all.
And namaste, vegan.
Namaste, vegan.
Namaste, vegan.
Namaste, vegan. Beautiful. All righty. We are 8 minutes after the hour. I just want to check in with Brett. Brett, it's really up to you whether we do World Beyond Money here in this room all together, which would frankly be my preference. The only thing is, we just have to deal with you know, so every once in a while somebody like Sanatana will come in and say, hey, where am I? I don't know where I am. I love this. And, you know, and normally that's what the lounge is for, is to receive the Sanatanas of the world and say, welcome, brother, you've come to the right place. So we could move a World Beyond Money to a breakout room and keep this as a lounge, or we could just all stay together. And Brett, it's up to you. And I apologize for putting you on the spot like that, but it is your program. So just wanted to make sure. Because
I like to be put on the spot. I actually only have an hour today. So I would say next week, let's do the breakout so we can actually start prototyping. And I would have said probably do that today, but since I only have an hour and we're all here, and I'm going to do a different thing. I'm just having more of a conversation today about a certain point rather than go through the process. I'll just explain to people that I did have a process, and if they would like to join another time, blah, blah, blah. But let's just use the whatever hour, 50 minutes, have a conversation, and then that makes it easy to bring people in.
Perfect.
Without being much of an interruption or anything. It's kind of just a topic of conversation for the hour.
Perfect. So I'm going to start a fresh recording in 3, 2.